And yeah, thank you so much, Joshua, for having me on this for this session. I mean, so I'll do okay. I'll just go on. I mean, taking lots of time. I'll just go on to share my screen. While I do a little bit of introduction. Begin at okay. Okay, so this session would be on UX research, conducting remote UX research, all of the things you need to know. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Yeah, so this session will be on conducting remote UX research. The fantastic thing about user research is it has even always been done remotely. Not always, I mean, it has been done remotely even before the pandemic and the lockdown. But then when the pandemic came, I think lots of companies had no other choice than to move user research to I mean, just conducting all their user research remotely, because I mean nobody could move around. And so remote user research came into play when companies had a large base of users cutting across different countries, different areas, and they need to understand each of these, people, each of these users and their demographics here. So, and that's really when remote UX research came to be. So, let me do a brief introduction of myself. I know Joshua has done quite a lot, but then I'm a product designer working as a product designer. I mean, but aside product design in itself, I so much enjoy doing the UX part of things. So it's more about designing the experience for users, and that's where I spend most of my time, just breaking things down and then just trying to make sure that the product is, kind of perfect for the user. So recently I've moved beyond just the UX part of a product to overseeing lots of the product life cycle, yeah, and then coming. Okay, yeah. So and overseeing lots of the UX, the product life cycle that's moving from design to development, launch, growth. I mean, all of that. I got to discover that the UX process does not end after design, and that has led me to seeing a product moving even beyond market fit to growth, and that's where I've spent most of my time. So I'll just jump into what we have, because I mean we're quite behind, schedule. Yeah. Okay, so user research. I just want to believe that everyone on this call, you either a product designer, UI designer, UX designer, a UX researcher, one of all of these. And then I know this is not new, but then it's just normal for me to, I mean, just give a brief in case we have people who are kind of like enthusiasts. I mean, just want to get into this space. All right, so yeah, user research is in plain terms, is simply carrying out research, methodic process of carrying out research, to make sure that you are building the right product. And what I mean by right product is a product that is addressing a particular set of users' problem. That's majorly what user research is for. Either even if you're launching a new feature on an existing product, or you're building a new product from scratch, it is always making sure that you are doing it right for the user, that you're building for. And then the user should direct, the product. So that's just basically what user research is for. It's simply making sure, carrying out research to make sure you're building, the right product. All of the remaining things there is just story. That's just the point. Now, when it becomes remote is when you are now gathering data from users that are distant. Just like I said at the beginning, remote UX research did not start after the pandemic or during the pandemic. It had actually been long before the pandemic, when companies had large set of users that live far away, different time zone, 12 hours difference and stuff like that, just try, and they want to build for those users. They don't want to lose that market. So that's since when remote user research started, yeah. So starting a remote research process, very, very important. So these are just some things that I have noted that would help you to conduct a good remote user research. And the first is you should have an overview of what you want to research about. As simple as this may seem, I see that a lot of designers, as in lots of ones that I got to speak to kind of early in their career, though, they do not take time to understand. But I know you want to you want to get to the users, you want to take things from them, you want to understand the users and all. But you yourself, you have to have kind of like a background overview and knowledge of the industry you design, you're going to build a product for. As a designer, I just tend to I tend to tell lots of designers and research around my space, when you're doing research or design, you're doing it for a product, let that be in your mind. Not that I'm a UI UX designer, I'm just doing design. Let it be in terms of product. Think in terms of product. That way you know that every product have its industry, the market, every product have a need that it must serve, and every product have a problem it must solve. When you think in terms of product, you won't just be looking to do the best design, or instead to build the best product. So industry, that's the first thing that you want to make sure you understand, because that will help you to get the right set of users to interview. The market that you'll be addressing, just do a kind of overview of the space you want to research for. It's very, 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 very important. Yeah. And then another is have an assumptions you want to test. Yeah. I think this is not something new if you've been doing research, but if you're new to user research, don't go blank into a research process. But there are some times you have to do that. I'll talk on that as we go on in this session. But then just don't go blank. Even at that, you still have some things you want to test for. If not, you just get some data that are not necessary or are not important to you. Okay, so another is to have an for the research, kind of similar to the assumptions, but then having an objective is like, at the end of research, I want to be able to, I want to come up with solutions to this and stuff like that. Or if the objective of the research is to make a decision on an information architecture, the objective of the research is to know, you could conduct user research for your UX writings, the copies that you'll be using, and then you should just have an objective. Don't just go generally. Another is understand where you are in the research process. I got to understand lately that the research process for a design is not just before you start the design or before you start building the product or designing for the product. Research should be done at every point of your design process, even at every point of your building process. Sometimes when you're in development mode, even when you're in, when you have launched, you still have to conduct user research. And even sometimes when you want to, when the product wants to, face a new direction, or you just want to take things kind of a little further, you have to do research. So UX research, should be throughout a product life cycle. As long as the product is still in the market, research should always keep going. And then you must know at what point this product is. If I'm researching, are we trying to get a product market fit? Okay, or is it an idea, or is there something we want to test? Most times we think research should just be about getting the right idea on what to build. Even positioning of a button, you could take a research process. That's a research process to know where to position buttons, and in terms of in terms of UI side of things. So know where you are in the research process, wherever the product is. That would just define the product stages. Then you'll be able to know where you are in the research process. So the last one is let your position in the design process and the needs of the research define your method and tool. There are lots of methods. We'll talk about lots of them. That's really what this session is fully about. Lots of research methods. Some you know, some you don't know how to do them well. So that's what majorly we'll be talking about. But then your position in the design process, where you are, in the design process, that's the research process or whatever, would help you to know what tool or what method you should use. So choosing the right research methods. Okay, so to choose the right research method, you start by knowing what problem you're trying to solve and what type of data you want to collect. This is very, 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 very important. You must first strongly understand, and the easy way to understand the problem is to do your own research on the industry. Just get an overview of what you want to solve. Do your own research. Just look at common challenges that exist in this industry. There is no right way to design. That's the truth. There is only the goal. When you're doing a design, that's one thing you should always take note of. If you're doing a research, there's no right way, there's no best way to design. There is only the goal. And what I mean by the goal is that what you want to achieve, that should be That's actually what should define how you go through your design process, or how you go through your research, or how you're going to do your design. I tell lots of folks doing UI UX and product design that you don't have to go through all of the design process, journey mapping, customer whatever mapping, and all the user flows, architecture, and stuff like that. Do what would work. Look at what you want to achieve, then use what will work for you. There are many times I've invented design processes that even lots of people don't know about. Trying to make sure that things work out the way, just things that could help me achieve what I exactly want to achieve. So when you want to start a research, know the problem strongly. That's very important. The problem you're trying to solve and the type of data you want to collect. It will help you direct the research. Another is to know where you are in design process. I've said this a lot, previously. And another is to consider your goals, resources, and timeline. This is very, very, very important. There's some research process that take longer time than some others, and you can find an alternative method, and consider the goals. I've spoken a little bit about that previously. Understand the goals, what you want to achieve. First off, the resources you have. Some of these tools require you to pay, you might not have those resources. So consider the resources, and then consider your timeline. Very, very important. Don't go out be fighting PMs that you have to do this research. You just have to be reasonable when you're working on a product. So, but eventually the right research method is the one that would provide like the complete answers, the exact things that you need. That's the best method, for you. So every what might be best for this product, or for this particular product you're working on today, might not be the best for the one you'll be working on in a couple of months to come, or the one you used last year might not be what will be working currently or would work for you some months back. So it's strongly what would solve your problem, what will give you the answers to the questions that you have, and that's what should define the right user research process. So I'll just talk a little bit about UX research categories, and then I wanted to do lots of breakdown on these, but then I just had to come to a conclusion that they are not 100% new, and then I just had to find the simplest terms to define them. So we have qualitative attitudinal research. So this is just about you listening to a few number of users. Listen. We have qualitative behavioral research. That's you observe a few number of users. The few number, like the few is defined by the qualitative. Attitude now is just listening. Behavioral is observing the users. We have quantitative attitudinal research. That's you listen to a large number of users, and we have quantitative behavioral research. You observe a large number of users. Let me confirm. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, interesting. All right. So yeah, so that's basically just a breakdown of research, and then all of the methods I'm explaining now. Going to I'll tell you which one is qualitative attitudinal research, which one is quantitative attitudinal research. So I'll be talking about some common remote research methods that exist, or that I've used. I've not used all of what I'll be talking about, but some of those I've used, and then others that exist. So the first is user interviews. I know this is not new, this is not strange. Yeah, it's a qualitative attitudinal research. So user interviews is basically gather information from users, putting them on calls and talking to users. That's basically what user interviews is. And the goal of your user interview should strongly be to understand the pain points of the users. Some of the things you should do right, to make sure that you conduct your user interviews very well. Make sure you dig yourself deep into the problem before the session, because you want to make sure you are picking the right things from the research process, and you want to make sure you are able to dig much deeper into the pains and the challenges of the users, and make sure that you're asking the why questions, because when you ask why, you would help the user to keep talking. What I mean by keep talking is not just saying yes or no, just not close-ended questions, is instead talking to you, sharing experiences and just sharing thoughts. That's why you should use why. Allow your users or potential users to talk freely. This is one thing I see lots of people do not do. I think let me go to the next point, then I'll buttress the two together. Now I have a set down questions geared towards getting insight into the problem, but still build up questions during the interview process. I've seen lots of I've attended lots of user interviews. People who want to interview me, and then they have their set down questions that they want to ask. And then they just keep asking, I keep answering, I keep asking. And then even you yourself that is being interviewed, you understand that this person is not interested in going down into what are your problems. He's just concerned on asking these questions and getting you to just answer this question. So, see it like a kind of discussion. Make sure that you have your goals in mind. That's the most important thing. What are the things you want to get at? So when the user you're interviewing is talking, make sure you are picking things from what he's saying. Use those things to ask questions, to dive deeper, so that you achieve the goal. Don't just make it like a one structured process that you're just talking and just asking your questions because you have those questions down. Don't be too rigid in that. Then the third was it now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? The fifth one is to listen. I do tell. Whenever I'm having user interviews, one thing I do is I don't take notes. Sometimes based on the project I'm working on, stakeholders might want to join the calls, and they are always keen on taking notes and stuff like that. But then I do not take notes, but I always make sure that I record. And the reason why is because I've discovered that when I take notes, I get distracted from what I do miss some things from the user, and I'm just sitting down and listening, first to understand and understand the problem, and try and think of solution. But then another thing I'm looking for is to pick those things that will be so peculiar to the product that the user would say that even the user would not be so conscious of. That's the reason why it's better to record. You can listen over again than taking notes. Be genuinely curious. This is very, very important. When I say genuinely curious, I mean that you should really want to solve this problem. I know that sometimes that if you start now as a designer, building up your portfolio and all, you would want to venture on products for the sake of portfolio. But then if you want to be if you want to conduct a very good user research, you must be genuinely curious. You really want to know, understand this problem, and it shouldn't be you have some assumptions in your mind, true, but then you should be genuinely concerned to understand the problem that the user is really, really facing. It's very, very important to be. And the last one, I spoke a little bit about it. Do not ask close-ended questions. Close-ended questions are, questions that the user will just say yes or no. That's not. You can't get it out of it. One thing to know about user interviews is that you want to understand. You're not looking for. You're looking for answers, but then you're not looking for defined answers. We have other methods if you want to do that. But the essence of talking to someone is to understand the problem, and as a user researcher, as a UX designer, you would want to wear the heart of your users, empathizing. Very, very, very important. Okay, so tools for conducting user research: Zoom, Google Meet. That's if you do not have enough budget to do some others. These are other tools that are paid, more of general user research, or kind of like user research tools. Look back, user Zoom, and Discount. Okay, so let me move to the next focus groups. I know this is also not new. So focus groups are basically just gathering users together, a group of people, and carrying out, a research process through video conferencing, putting them together and just talking to everyone, getting people's mind. Focus groups, personally for me, there are lots of thoughts on focus groups, on the internet. But personally, for me, I see focus groups to strongly be for an existing product, not a new product. While it works, it doesn't always work well. From my experience, that's why I say from my experience, it doesn't always work well because you're bringing different people, and except there's a common cause. What I mean by common cause, which definitely there is, but then I mean, if it's for a product that is existing and you want to try a new feature, you want to launch a new feature to support the product. I mean, all of these users know that, okay, we are coming on this for let me look for product. We're coming on this to help Zoom build up a new feature, or we're coming on this to help Figma, build up a new feature, But then if it's for an entirely new product, you really would not be able to gather the right set of people. That's always the problem, because you don't have a defined set of user yet, Yeah. So that's just my experience of focus group, but it's a really good research method if you see that it's going to help you get what you want. That's why I said that earlier. So first thing you want to do, right, is understand the goals of your focus group. Come up with questions that will get you the responses you need. Very, very, very important. The questions you ask in focus group are very important, and they should be as clear as possible, because you're bringing sets of people together from different set of understanding, and stuff, different kind of persons. And so be good, maybe you have a focus group, people from different maybe countries and stuff like that, different kind of thought patterns or thinking, so one thing you want to do is to make sure that your questions are structured very right. Do lots of checks on the questions you want to ask. Okay, write a script for the topics you want to discuss during the section. Also important. When those things you want to get out from the focus group should be very, very definite, and very well defined. Very, very important, because you're going to end up wasting time on the focus group session. It should be very definite and very, very, very defined. You don't want to mix that. And another is mostly effective for users of an existing product. I said that earlier, not really much of a new product you're trying out, or maybe even if it's a new product, but it should be like an existing, a company with a domain. It's just like if Google wants to build a new product, for example. They have an existing domain, and then you already have an idea going into the focus group discussion as a participant. Now, okay, it's something for Google, and then it helps you when you're answering questions. You would think in terms of Google, not like other, if it's a new product. So another is to include the right amount of participant. 5 to 10 are recommended to keep session. Focused and organized, because you don't want to have, even 10 seems too much for me, but then 5 is a perfect number. So tools for conducting focus group, just other video conferencing platforms, Zoom, Google Meet, just any video conferencing platform, because most of the, and then you must record, very important. Most of the documentation will be by recording, and you want to listen over and over again as you go on with the research process. Okay, so another one is diary studies. Diary studies, it's this method where you get a user to do a testing for you intentionally, and the user must be willing to do it. That's first off, so it's more like when we're building a product, we've built a product and then it's launched, or maybe possibly it's launched, and then you want a user to just take note of those things, of certain things. When you're conducting a dairy study, or when you want to conduct a dairy study, you should have those things you want to test. Not very much. Sometimes you will just want to do like a general overview, a general feedback of using the product. That's on its own. But then if you want to make it like really kind of like qualitative, you want to have those things you want to test for. So you tell the users what's your experience doing this, what's your experience doing this. Now it must be, a kind of enlighten the user that would be able to give you what you want. You need to be clear on what your participants should do. Very, very important for a diary study. Very, very, very important. Now how they should communicate with you in case they have questions. When they are going through that process, maybe there's some things they want to clear. You just have to have that personal connection with who you're interviewing, or who you're conducting the dairy study with, the user you're conducting the dairy study with. There's this kind of personal communication you want to have with them. Always very important. So, and what kind of feedback they should deliver. Just like what I said earlier, it should be defined. The feedback you want should be defined. Now you have to define if you want the feedback to be free form or structured. So still the same thing, kind of, if you want the feedback to be, just anything, just tell me your experience using the product, or you want some specific things you want to check, or you want the user to check, Yeah, so some tools for conducting focus groups like virtual diary, where the user documents each of those experiences as they use them. Another is like a discount, So discount, just like I said earlier, discount is a tool, for conducting. You can use it for conducting diary studies. They have a feature for that, and then maybe a shared diary will be like a cool one, or like an important tool to use. To the shared diary is just basically a diary that both you and the participant can access, and they just put in documentations. So that's how you conduct a dairy study. Dairy study are very, very, very effective for SaaS products a lot. I mean, very effective for SaaS products, because what I mean by SaaS products, like software as a service, more like those tools that you're using to do one or two things, calendar tools, scheduling tools, productivity tools, and stuff like more like SaaS products. Very, very important and very, very strong if you're doing a conducting SaaS product. So you want to use dairy tools, dairy study in your process. Yeah. Another is surveys. You don't need to survey. Surveys is just like forms that you just pull down. But one thing, set a goal for your survey. Structure the questions with those goals in mind. Open-ended questions or close-ended questions. You define that. Sometimes you just want to get a yes or a no. And that's more like the best advice for a survey. Don't make someone filling a survey have to do tons of explanations. You won't get everything there. If that's what you want, you should use a user interview, or maybe do some other more defined process. Not that the user would have to. So anyone filling the form would have to type for long. You might want to put in. You might want to make a mix. That's mostly what I do. I make a mix of both open-ended and close-ended questions, not more of the why, but then something that they could give a short explanation for, Another is ask questions that will help users give more specific and measurable answers. You don't want people giving you things that you do not need. You can't get them, and then your research process, your time for that research, it takes time to get survey filled, you keep sending it, and then you don't want to waste that time. So some tools for conducting surveys: forms, type forms, Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Usability, very effective tools for conducting. SurveyMonkey, Usability, they help you with more of the analysis. Google Form does that too. More of the analysis here. All right. Yes. So if you have questions after this session, I think there's a time for that. So yeah. So card sorting. Card sorting is a very, very fantastic research method. Very, very fantastic. If you're working on a SaaS product, or not necessarily in a SaaS product, if you're doing information architecture for a product and you're confused, even if you're not confused, sometimes if you have the budget to, why not do it? Card sorting would help, just bring your user together, and then just get a user and then put all of those things you need to organize, and like, okay, pick these things. There are keywords on those cards, and you like arrange these cards as they suit your thinking, or what you feel how they should be arranged, categorized. There are sometimes in the product you see under is it under inventory, you see cards, and just trying to sort all of those things together and put them under the right one, so that when a user comes on the platform, you have already defined that if you want to access cards, or if you want to access should I say, if you want to access the store or something, you can find it under inventory. Or then there's a priority, there's overview, there is product, there is maybe what's it again, maybe shops. I'm trying to just look at some product I've designed to address that. But then you just want to sort all of these things in the right way for the user. The goal of the user research is to do it the right way for the user, build the products for the user. Very effective for information architecture. So some of the tools for conducting card sorting: UX tweaks, optimal sort, UX. All of these tools are for doing card sorting remotely, onboarding users and doing it remotely. They will help with that. So UX tweaks, optimal sort, UX metrics, user terms, Xsort, card sort, UX tools suite. very effective tools for doing card sorting, and they'll help with the onboarding, onboarding user, which is very, very important. Another is tree testing. Tree testing and card sorting are similar, but then tree testing is, when you want to understand what's the first thing that a user would like to see on your website. When you're maybe designing a landing page or something, you want to catch the attention of the user and all like that. You have those goals set down. How is the way the user is going to navigate through the platform. More like doing your. It's more like you drafted out an information architecture for your website or for your product, and then you are testing if the hierarchy in which they are defined the right way. That's what tree testing is about. To define the tree structure, very important. Don't go blank. Card sorting, you just write them down in cards, in different listing, and then the users kind of arrange them. But for tree testing, you should have your information architecture down, something you think should be right. Your designer or whatever, your researcher, you have idea about doing this. You're not totally blank. So you want to have your tree structure, down before, when I'm saying tree structure, I mean like the information architecture or whatever way you just want to arrange the informations on your platform, and then you create goal-based tasks. Um, there are some things you are confused about, you possibly want to test for, you want to check for. Don't go blank. Just make sure that those are goals. So conduct pilot tests with your team. Very important to check the architecture first before going to the user, because if you're not careful, you can also be misled in a research process by a user. Select the participants and you move. Some tools, Maze and Cobiton. The Maze, used Maze before. Maze is a very, very effective tool for user research generally, even beyond doing tree testing. Maze, you check out Maze, very fantastic tool for doing user research. I love using them a lot. Okay, so usability testing. Usability testing, it's not a strange word. It's not a strange word. Usability testing is like in a research method for evaluating a product with people by getting them to complete a list of tasks, observing their interactions. First disclaimer for usability testing. Every time, even I myself, when I started out, I thought usability testing should be done after your hi-fi. You have your beautiful design. Okay, come and test this. Then you call users, alpha, test my product. And most times when we write case studies, we put usability testing at the end. And when, it's fine to put it at the end, but then by the time you read most of these usability tests, you know that this was done after the whole design. But no, that's not when you should do usability test. Usability testing is not, there is something called what's it called now? Is it summary testing? Is it summary? Yeah, I think it's called summary testing. So summary testing is that final testing you do after you have designed your hi-fis and you have done all your prototypes. That's summary testing, not usability testing. It's a branch, but then that's really like the end. Usability testing should be done at the early stages. It could be as simple as asking questions, a flow. It doesn't have to be the whole product. It doesn't have to be the whole feature completely designed. It could just be a flow you want to test. Okay, create a store, do this, do that, and that's what you just want to test. Or okay, log in. It can just be your onboarding you want to test. It could just be a particular task you want to test. That's how you should do usability testing. That's how you should approach it. So you can even do usability testing with your low files. That's for designers. And as a UX researcher, you'll be wondering, okay, how do you do usability testing? So as a UX researcher doing usability testing, you can do usability testing by just creating very simple wireframes, and then testing them with users. It doesn't have to be beautiful, it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal of a wireframe is to, eliminate all of those noise and make sure that you have the best layout and the best flow. And then you should test at that point to know that the wireframe is perfect before moving to hi-fis. So I know lots of researchers and designers do this wrongly by doing usability testing at the end. So that's one thing you want to take note. So do usability testing before hi-fi. Conduct usability testing anytime you assume. Once you assume, okay, should this be like this? Should it be I still conducted one even today, just on a screen. That's how usability testing should be. It shouldn't be on the perfect, and final product, So you conduct usability testing even after your launch. you use the right tools also. Some tools for conducting. Yeah, Maze, fantastic. Usertesting.com, very, 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 very interesting too. I won't lie, very interesting too. Usertesting.com. Loop, I mean, they will help you with the analytics also. That's why I say very, very, very interesting. So Loop 11 is also fantastic. Userlytics also help you with, analysis after your test. So there's usability testing. So I think, if I'm correct, this might be the last one I'll be talking about. There are quite a lot, but then these ones are like very, very, very important. It's a qualitative behavioral research too. I hope you're taking note of those ones that were qualitative, attitudinal or behavioral. This is a qualitative behavioral. So 5-second testing. This is like a very, it's like a very interesting user research process. A very, very interesting one. If you get the right set of users to test with, you would fix a lot of problems from your product or from your design or whatever, or from whatever you're building with this process. So it's mostly giving a user 5 seconds to view something, a product, a design, whatever, and ask them about their first impression. What did they notice first? You have, and the way this works is you have those things you want the users to notice first. When a user comes to your platform, your product or your landing page or whatever, you have that thing you want them to see first. You have that thing you want them to do first. You have that thing you want to catch their attention. So when you test with a user in 5 seconds, if it doesn't catch his attention, then you didn't achieve that goal. That's how simple 5-second testing is, And you could easily do this on calls with your users, okay, log on to this, maybe your prototype or your prototype, and then you just be like, you just ask the user to look at a screen for 5 seconds and then close it, and then okay, you ask, what's up? What did you notice first? If it's not what you have in mind or what you expect that user should not notice first, then you did not, that design did not achieve your goal. Very, very simple. I love doing this a lot, but I mostly do the test from myself, but then 5-second testing is a very, very perfect, testing method or testing approach. Some tools for conducting 5-second testing: Maze, Userberry, Userpick. One of the reasons why these tools are fantastic ones is, you get to onboard your users with these tools seamlessly. Just using these tools will make your user research process very, very important. If you want to start remote user research, or you want to venture into doing user research, I think as a newbie, you might not have access to. Most of these tools, the least you will find is maybe $25 per month. They're as high as $99 per month to $149 per month. But if you're working with a team, you could suggest some of these tools. Very fantastic. Maze, usertesting.com, they are my favorites, when it comes to doing most of my user research process. Yeah. So if you want to conduct 5-second testing, Userberry, Userpick, 5-second test, Maze, very fantastic tools for doing this. And then in terms of tools, if you want to look at tools, you want to look at the tool that will help you to be able to do so much. Not tools that will just be doing one. 5-secondtest.com is not doing all of user research. It's mostly about testing, user interviews and 5-second testing. That's just basically what it's doing. It's not doing much of the other research process. So you might want to pick a tool for that. Yeah, so that's that basically. So in summary, basically, just like I started with, research is all about problem solving. Okay, so you should come into research with the mind of solving a problem. That's the reason why I enjoy working on product, not just doing designs. Sometimes I read case studies that lots of folk post on Twitter or LinkedIn, and then I'm like, I know that you just did this for doing sake. You really didn't buy into this problem, especially when I read a case study on a space I have ventured in. I'm like, nah, this is not the problem of this space, or you didn't really address this problem well. But then I understand that people are growing, but then you want to make sure that you're into the problem, really, really, really into the problem, and then choose a method that would help you solve the problem. And then that's very much important, choose suitable method that will help you achieve the goals. There are lots and lots. These are just some. I wrote some common methods. There are many other interesting methods too that you could use. You could even invent your own method. Just like I said, design is not rigid. Design is not strict. The goal of a design a product design, or the goal of a UX research is to make sure that you build the right product for the right user. I mean, you build the right product for the user you are addressing. So that's just basically what it is, And then, but in the end, the right methodology for conducting research is the one you can get buy-in from. You have stakeholders, or the one you can afford, your budget, and your timeline. So those are basically the right methodology. I think I've gone beyond my time, and then I think I'd like to stop there. Questions. Thank you so much, Joshua. So I just like to take questions if there are questions, and then you know just hand over.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaiah. It was really an insightful session. I took a couple of notes and then I got to know about new softwares and new methods. And thank you so much for the
Yeah,
session.
it's my pleasure.
Okay, so everyone, if you have questions, you could put them up in the chat section or the Q&A. I can't see any in the Q&A, but I know there was a question Shitsu asked. So Shitsu asked, was able to get the slides that you presented with.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's possible. I could just share the link, or convert it to PDF or something.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Someone also asked if it's possible to get a recording. Okay, yes, I'll prepare the recording and then send out to our emails. Okay, so there's a question. I'll read it for you. I'll read it out to you. Isaiah. It says, many companies see extensive
Okay.
research as a waste of time. They just want you to do to affect the product. How do you better convince companies and business to do extensive research?
Okay, so this is actually very, very true, especially companies that didn't start out on the basis of research, or companies that were started by, which most of the time, tech companies, most of the time is the case, started by, engineers. So if you want to get your stakeholders to buy into doing research, really, really, to be very sincere, I know how difficult it is to get leaders in a company to buy into what you're doing. But then there really isn't so much that you can do except you're in a leadership position, or you're close to a leadership position, sometimes. And then sometimes, you also have to be reasonable as a designer. Some of the things I've experienced is especially when you're working with PM, some of the things I've experienced is, there is no time, enough time to do research. That's why I mostly spoke about doing making sure that the research method you'll be choosing, fits into the timeline for the project. You don't want something that will be so wild and stops like that. So you have to be reasonable first off, but then extensive research, really, to be sincere, break down your research into the product. Like, the reason why stakeholders don't like so much research process, because most of the time, the end of the day, we research for a long time and possibly don't get to do what we want to do, or waste so much time, doing research. So that's why I said the UX research process is at every stage of a product, not even every stage of a design. It's every stage of a product. So break down those things, have some assumptions you want to test, little assumptions, pick few methods you want to use, one or two. You don't need all of the method. Pick one or two that will give you, or just one might even be perfect. Make use of it, get whatever you want to get from it, and then move to the next. Get what you want to get from it, and stuff like that. So break them down and suggest this breakdown to the companies. But if it's in terms of budget, and that's the reason why the company don't want to do extensive research, then to be sincere, there's really nothing you can do. There's really nothing you can do, because you're not doing financials. They have the reason why they don't have budget to doing all of that. But then making sure that your research is not about, you can't figure everything out at the beginning of the process, so you just be wasting time doing that. So make sure you break your research process into tiny bits. Have little things you want to test at the beginning. What I do is I have three major things, no matter how much the problem is in the space. Three major things I want to test. That's how I do my research. Three at every point in time. Three things I want to test, and make sure that three is just like maximum. it might not be up to, but 3 things I want to test. And those little things, breaking them down into processes, I mean, I'm able to convince, I always state that at the beginning of my design process, whatever project I'm working on, but then breaking those things into the product development process is just something that has, been really helpful and fantastic. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I mean, if I would say thanks for clarifying it, because sometimes designers, UX designers are in the box on, fix of what to do exactly. So I can't see any question, but I have my question. As I type it, okay. I want to know what has been a difficult user research process you have undertaken. Could you just share one, and how did you get it solved?
Okay, so I think the difficult one I have undertaken that I'm currently doing, the research we're trying to get, and this is it, it's in the Web3 space, and it's about what's it called now, you know, cryptocurrency, foreign what's it currency transfer, between different locations, and then strengthening P2P, and then there are just so many things that I want to test for. And here is why it's the most difficult. And that's simply because defining the set of users that we want to test for is really, really difficult. And here's why. The users that know, there are a set of users that already know about was it about cryptocurrency, doing all of the sending that is strongly on cryptocurrency. And then there's a set of users that don't know about cryptocurrency at all. Now, this product, a part of it is addressing those users, and a part of it is addressing the users that already know about it. And here's why it's very complex. Conducting those research are very complex, because there is really nothing I'm getting currently from the users that don't have so much about cryptocurrency. All I get is fear of getting into it, and I have to do the analysis also. And then, I can't just analyze that fear is the reason why guys are not getting into it, and then there's nothing reasonable to build upon. That's so it's been so challenging, because you have a set of users that you want to you're conducting the research and you want to get things from, and you're not even getting anything reasonable from. So I think it's really has been very challenging. And currently, I'm just on a break on that research to come up with the best strategy to pick things from them, and how to do it. I have resolved that we make a kind of disguise. There's a lot of things I've been coming up, and assumptions and suggestions I've been coming up with. But then, addressing different kind of users for one product, and then not getting anything from a user. Yeah, I think that's been the most challenging thing. Basically, anytime I have challenges doing user research, I just jump back to the anytime I have challenges here doing a user research, I just jump back to the user, whether on a call or a chat or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's basically.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Thanks so much for sharing that from your experience and all.
Yeah.
And I question also leads to this last question. So everyone, this is the last question I'll be taking because of our time. So Navi, as it says, thank you for the clear and easy to follow presentation. I have a question, but sorry if it is too dumb. No, it's not dumb. No question is dumb. So the question is, I'm fully aware that research always takes much time, but the timeline is mostly tight. Unfortunately, sometimes we can get stuck. My question is, do you have any tips to do that?
Okay, like you get stuck in the research process. Is that the question?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you
Yes.
don't have time to
Yes.
wait.
Yes. Yeah, that's what the question
Okay,
is.
okay. For this, one thing I would like everybody doing product, and if you're designing, you're doing product, to understand that the whole issue of user research is not on your head alone. It's not on you alone. Make sure that at every stage you communicate to all the people involved in the product, except it's a personal something that you're doing. But then product you're working on, or where you currently work at, so that your PM, everybody that's in the product team that's defined to work on this particular thing. Make sure that everybody is involved and understand the position you are. That will help you to be able to communicate your blockers. So I think communicating your blockers will do a lot. Don't just sit off and say, "Oh, I just have to figure out this user research stuff all by myself and present what I have to do." No, it's really. I mean, even designing. I mean, it's very, very, very important that even as designers, you share your design with other designers. I mean, just get their feedback, their buy-ins and stuff like that. So the same thing go with user research. So whenever you are stuck, whatever be the reason, maybe you're not getting interesting insights. Come on calls with your other persons on the product. Review your process. If that's the reason, if that's the reason why you're not getting, if that's the reason why you are stuck, maybe you're not getting what you expect to get. Review your process, redefine your goals. Just go back over it again with your product people. I'm saying it because if you're doing it alone, you're gonna get stressed. But if you're going over it again with the guys you're working on, on your product team, it would help you to clear your head quite a while and would bring up more suggestions. So I think that would help you to clear being stuck. But then if everybody on the team is stuck, then maybe the product is not supposed to be built now, or it's just something everybody will have to leave and come back to later. Just what works for the team. Yeah. So that's basically, what I have to say on that.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you for that as well. And with that last question, we've come to the end of today's session. I really want to appreciate you, Isaiah, for coming around and then taking us through this minutes of insightful session on UX research.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is trying to comment on your response. Says, sadly, I don't have a PM, but the person is solo, but says thanks for the clear tips.
I'm really sorry about that. But okay, I think another thing that can help you is talk with other researchers, maybe in the same domain or in the same industry or working in a similar company or something. Like just talk with other people. Don't just stay alone. Sometimes when you stay alone, you just get too blocked, and you can talk to other designers, other researchers. They help a lot. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I think that works.
Okay.